everyone, it's Leela from Miss Kiss Creations. Welcome back to my channel. Today's tumbler tutorial is going to be this beautiful watercolor gold flake tumbler. This tumbler is one of my favorite designs. I really love how elegant it looks and it's super easy to achieve. The watercolor effect just flows right together with the gold flake and it's just so simple yet so beautiful. I would like to mention that in this video, there is a sweet surprise for all of my viewers, so be sure to watch the entire video. And like always, I will have all of my materials posted in my description below, along with any help videos for my beginners. And of course, if you like this video, please be sure to give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get started on this tumbler. Today I'm going to be working with this 14-ounce wine glass that I purchased from Maker Flow Crafts. I went ahead and I sanded this down with a 180 grit sanding block, and then I took 91% alcohol to wipe it down. After I wiped it down with 91% alcohol, I spray painted it with a flat white spray paint. I know we're very limited on alcohol right now due to COVID, but you have to have at least 91% alcohol to wipe down your tumbler because it needs to remove all those excess oils that may have transferred from your hands to your tumbler. I've purchased my alcohol from Rite Aid and I got it delivered to my house, and I also purchased some off of eBay. 99% alcohol will work fine. To create this veiny or water look, I use gold flakes and I use alcohol and alcohol inks. I will be recreating this tumbler or wine tumbler. It won't be identical, but it will be the same style. The alcohol colors that I will be using for my tumbler, what I use for this one, it's going to be all by Tim Holtz. So I use Sailboat Blue, I use Purple Twilight, and then I use Wild Plum. So these are the only three colors that I used. My Sailboat Blue or my Sailboat, it actually leaks, so I'm going to be replacing my blue with the Piñata Baja Blue, but I know a lot of people, they like to keep the same brand inks. It's easier to buy them all together, so I just wanted to show y'all the three colors that I use, and again, this will be in my description below. I'll also be using a paintbrush, and I am using, I believe this is 1/2 inch head. You can use something bigger or smaller, whatever you prefer. I have my little 1 ounce measuring cups. This is what I use for the alcohol. I know these things are kind of expensive. I did purchase them from Amazon. So I know a lot of people like to use Dixie Cups, but remember it's alcohol, so it might eat through the paper. That's why I recommend using the plastic ones instead of the paper cups. And if you don't have these on hand, you can always put it in a small leftover container. I'm first going to place my alcohol inside of the cup. This is going to be kind of like a wash cup, or it's going to kind of spread out the alcohol inks, so you'll see what I'm talking about whenever I begin the tumbler. And then I just like to open all of my ink colors just so I'm not really doing this in a hurry. I just like them all open just to make it easier. I also use paper towels to blot off my paintbrush just in case I make a little bit of a mess. And I also like to keep my tumbler on the football and the arm. It just allows me to have more control of the tumbler. If you don't like to keep this on here, that's fine. You can always just stick your hand in the tumbler. I see plenty of people doing that. The gold flakes that I'll be using today are from Glitter Heart Co. I will be adding their website in my description below, along with a 15% off coupon for your first order at glitterheartco.com. These are very lightweight, so I do recommend having some tweezers. And I know a lot of crafters, they own a Cricut, so if you want to use the Cricut tweezers, that also helps as well. I will be applying my gold flakes with Mod Podge. Okay, so let's get started with this tumbler. So I have all of my supplies close because these alcohol inks, they tend to run. But this tumbler, like many tumblers that I do for my beginners, it's very, very hard to mess up because it's so, it's very elegant and abstract, so you really can't mess up this design. So I'm just going to grab my Wild Plum and I'm simply going to just create a line. The line can go anywhere. So I'm just going to create it, but I'm going to do this quickly. I'm going to place my alcohol ink down quickly and grab my brush. Before I grab my brush, I'm going to dip it inside of the alcohol just to have it moist with the alcohol. So you want this to be wet with alcohol, and then I'm just going to place it on my napkin. So I'm just going to put this in a diagonal angle, and sometimes it'll roll down and sometimes it won't. Fortunately, it didn't roll down. I have my paintbrush dipped in the alcohol and I kind of blot it on the napkin. And then all I do is I blot the alcohol like so. And you're going to see that the puddle is very, I guess there's a, I guess the only way to explain it is there's actually a lot of alcohol ink on there. You're going to keep doing that. You're going to keep blotting the alcohol until it completely dries. And I'm just going in any old motion. Whenever sometimes I pour the alcohol ink on here, it sometimes rolls down and then I have to catch it. And that's actually a cool thing because it just does it on its own. So it creates its own design. So I kind of like that. So you see how dark this is right now. I'm going to then dip my brush back into my alcohol and then I blot it again. And then now that I have just regular alcohol on my brush, this is what thins out that design. And this creates that nice water effect that I'm looking for. So sometimes you can just blot it in there in the alcohol and you can see there's a lot. You probably can't see it on camera, but you can put a lot of alcohol on there if you have a lot of alcohol ink in one spot, and see how it's starting to run, and it just kind of runs on its own. So I personally like how that happens because I know a lot of times we do these tumblers and we kind of overthink them. So if you just think about it, letting the alcohol ink go where it wants to run and just kind of blot it out as it's running, it creates that cool effect. So all I do is I just repeat this until I'm happy with how much has like shifted. You can see it's starting to shift. And one thing I do also do is I blow it up. I blow it, so if I see it going in a different direction, what I do is I just blow it and it kind of just runs where it wants to run. And the cool thing about this I really like is this is very forgiving. This is alcohol ink. So to clean up alcohol ink is you use alcohol. So if you don't like this area, we can take this napkin and just kind of put it on the cup like so, and it cleans it up. And once you add the other designs on here, once you add the other colors, you won't even be able to see that. And if you are going to see it, or if you're very meticulous and you don't want that there, I personally think it just adds to the look of just the randomness. So I'm going to keep blotting on here and keep adding my paintbrush, and you can see it separates more. And you just keep repeating this process until your little heart is happy. You can kind of chase it. It kind of gets, sorry, I'm trying to keep this in the camera, but it kind of gets, going back and forth. You don't know which way to go. Both of the alcohol inks are going in separate directions. And you can see the layers on here as it kind of drifted down and drifted to the right some. You can really see the layers of the colors. The more alcohol, the more 91% or pure alcohol that I put on this tumbler, the lighter it makes the tumbler. So you can see it's pink here, and then it's turning purple right here because there's more alcohol on the pink area than there is on this purple looking area. So if you want, just add a little bit and just let this be where it lands. So what I like to do is, I don't like the harsh lines. I like mine, if you can tell, to me, it's watercolor. That's what I'm gonna call this tumbler. It's kind of watercolor. So that's how I like how it comes out. So I put a little bit of alcohol ink and I just keep drenching it until those lines, until there's more layers, I should say, because you see both of these layers. So I just play with this until I'm satisfied with it. So you do the same thing, and you can see it just runs right down, especially with these, with the wine glass tumblers. It really likes to run at the bottom here because it has that bottom part. I really hope I didn't not get all this in the camera, guys. It's hard to try to look at the camera and still trying to make a nice tumbler. So this is running, and I'm just going to try to you can just swoop it right back up. So I really like how those layers are starting to look. So you can add another color or you can add the same color. What I like to do is just kind of add another color to this. I wait for this because alcohol ink generally dries very quickly, but sometimes you'll have a little piece of the ink not dry. So you can blow dry it, you know, with your mouth, just try to dry it. I try not to go on to the next color until the first color is dry, only because I'll forget that it's not dry down here and then move the tumbler and then I have a whole thing of alcohol ink going around the cup. So you don't want that. I'm going to go in with my blue and then I'm just going to add it right here in the middle. And I'm going to add a little bit because I want to work around that with the purple and the pink. So you see that little bit of alcohol ink. It's going to go such a long ways because you thin it out with the regular alcohol. And I just let it go wherever it wants to go. And usually it dries very quickly, but the fact that you're adding more alcohol to it, it dries a little slower. Because obviously you're adding more moisture to the tumbler. And you can just roll it out wherever. It actually looks like the state of Florida in a way. You can see right here, the state of Florida. We're gonna mess that up a little bit. So you see how they kind of come together here. And then I kind of focused on up here more. So now I'm going to add a little bit of alcohol ink at the bottom here to thin out so we can start running down and start naturally doing its own little dance. And this just takes, I wouldn't even say patience because I don't have that much patience. And I guess in crafting, people who don't have patience have so much patience when it comes to crafting. So I wouldn't even say this takes patience. This is just, to me, it's calming. So I really like it. I don't get frustrated with it because I know that it's art. And if you just let it go naturally, it just looks really, really beautiful. And then what you can kind of do is you can still add alcohol ink or alcohol to this dried alcohol ink whenever all of this is dry. So I'm going to let the blue dry. It should take 20 seconds or so. And then I'll show you just kind of add more here if you like to kind of blend them. Okay, so I'm going to dip my brush back in the alcohol and then I'm just going to add some alcohol right here in the middle. And I don't like this little piece of blue right here. So I'm just going to blot it until I like the area. And these colors mix. So you're not going to only have the blue and the purple, or the blue and the pink, you're going to mix another color. And then I'm just going to, if you like where it lands, like I really like how that landed, just let it sit and then try to air dry it. Don't try, or blow dry it. Don't blow it so hard that you're gonna run it across the tumbler if you don't like how it sits. So I'm just going to blow it and you can see the dark layer that's starting to create right there, and you can see the layer on top of the pink. So here's how it looks so far. I know it doesn't look all too neat, but just take your time with this and you'll get what you want to get. It's really fun and it's really neat kind of looking how the colors move around and how you start with just one line. You could see how it starts creating fun designs like this. Now for a little bit of purple, I'm just going to, I guess, splash it everywhere like I did on accident. And then I'm going to just drag it down. And then blot, and then let that purple go where it wants to go. And you can, if you personally like this dark line, you can leave it like that. And then what I know I see a lot of people do, here's this dark line, you can kind of fan it out. So if you just fan that out instead of having like a blob, I know a lot of people like that dark vein look, I guess it's called. And then you just fan out the rest. You need a lot more alcohol ink. And then you can have that nice like vein. You just start in the middle. Oops. I personally like the blobs, and I like where the dark veins go. I like where they naturally go. not only because I like the look better, it's just because for me it's a lot easier where it just naturally falls. And I really like the watercolor. This always reminds me of like the watercolor windows that you see whenever we used to, or I guess I used to paint them as a kid. Or you'd put like tissue paper inside of a glass window. So I always found that look fascinating, and I liked doing that as a child. So this is what this reminds me of. It's really, really cool. You can see all my colors are going everywhere, and I'm trying to just catch them. So that blue went into the purple, I should say, went into the purple. You see it makes a cool little effect there. And I just catch it. I try to catch it because I don't like the leaking lines. I want more of a blob. And then I dry it. The one thing about this tumbler for me personally that I think is the hardest is knowing what colors your colors are going to turn into whenever you add your alcohol. So this was the pink, this color was a pink, and this color was a purple. They look very similar whenever colors are added. To me, at least, they do. So if you have very too close, like similar colors or similar shades, and you might add the alcohol ink to it, and then it might just turn into a different color, or it might just look like the same color. Because on this one, you can barely see the purple. There's a little bit of purple, and I'm sure I added a lot more purple than that. So just keep that in mind, that whenever you add the colors, it's going to look a lot different. It's going to look more faded or lighter whenever you add that alcohol, and especially it's going to change whenever the colors mix together. So I'm sure you guys got the gist of it. So I'm going to finish this tumbler and kind of fast forward it to finish this tutorial, and then I'll see y'all soon. One thing I forgot to mention is your alcohol inside of your cup is going to turn because you're adding little bits of alcohol ink color inside of there. So what I like to do is you can change your water, and I have a little bottle here. I don't know if you could see on camera, but it's a little tinted. So this is where I keep all of my alcohol ink until it's full. That has some ink, because I don't want to waste it. I want to be able to reuse it. And whenever you add like all of this pink alcohol ink, whenever you add it to more alcohol, it's going to die down. So it's going to dilute more. So you're not going to be able to see the color. So if you're doing like your blue and you notice, oh man, it keeps turning purple, it keeps turning pink. Well, it's because you keep dipping your brush into that alcohol. So I wanted to catch this before I did too much. I added my blue right here, and it was dripping both ways. I did not know which way to go. So I went towards me to fix it, and now it's fixed. And then it also dripped this way. So I fixed it a little bit, but I had a big just drip line. You can still see it some, just that ugly drip line. So all you do to fix that is you just keep adding more alcohol ink, and it just blends right together. It creates, instead of a line, it just creates a blob. So it happens, it drips, but it's an easy way to fix it. And remember that beginning, the first drip line, you can't even see it anymore. So just kind of keep blending, and you have this beautiful just watercolor effect. Just keep adding that alcohol ink to here, or excuse me, the 91% alcohol ink, and then you'll see that it kind of disappears there. So you see I have this kind of drip line here. I'm going to dab my brush into the alcohol, and then I'm just going to add alcohol on here. And it's going to just kind of fade away. You can see I have a lot of blue inside of my brush, so now it's turning blue. You just keep dabbing and it fades right away. It's really hard to mess up this tumbler. I'm just gonna grab it with my hand because I don't want it to run. And then just kind of blot it, blow it off, and then it will dry. I'm going to continue to add more on here only because I have that line there and I can see it. I don't know if y'all can, but if I can, that's all that matters. I'm going to show y'all another thing. I have this blue here and there's not much layers on this. It doesn't really look nice. I mean, it looks nice, but I want it to have a little bit more layers. So what you can do is you can just add more blue over it, or what you can do is mix some colors. So if you want to go that route, just add a little bit of, let me add some purple. Whoops. Just add a little bit purple on here and then you can kind of mix it. I'm going to add it towards the outside, and that was actually a lot more than what I wanted. Every video I have my heavy hand moment. And then now that I have it there, and that's just how it's going to be, I'm just going to fan that out. And then I'm going to add more alcohol towards the blue. So it's going to give it more layers as well. And I'm just swiping this up with my finger if it goes too much, if it drips too much. So you can see that now it kind of has more layers to it and it has more of that alcohol look or that watercolor look. So there you go. And then if you don't like that little split there, which I don't, then just keep adding more alcohol. And alcohol generally dries very quickly. And that just ran all the way up my tumbler. So let me make sure this is dry. And then I'm just going to follow this line with more alcohol. So you can see blotting it and kind of fanning it out loses that line. And where it dries is where it dries. So make sure you keep in mind that your tumbler is obviously round and it's going to be going a lot of directions. But like I said, it's very, very hard to mess up this tumbler. So just keep doing this until your little heart is happy. Okay guys, so I am finished with this part of the tumbler. It dries very quickly, as you can see. And please, like I tell you all the time, make this tumbler your own. So if you want these more dark, then don't add as much alcohol. If you want it more light, then add more alcohol. I like to keep little white spaces open. I just like the look of it. I like how it looks. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to add the gold flakes. Like mentioned earlier, I'm going to be applying my gold flakes with my Mod Podge. So I have my gold flakes open here, and then I have a napkin here just to catch them. I also have my tweezers. Unfortunately, I have epoxy stuck to my tweezers. So we'll see how well these do with this. And then I have my sponge brush or my Mod Podge brush. I probably recommend you using a smaller brush, but this is just all I have, so I'm just going to make it work. And so what we're going to do is we are going to just place the Mod Podge on the brush, and then we're going to just put Mod Podge wherever we want the gold flakes to stick to. So again, I just randomly do this, and I have just a little bit of Mod Podge, and then I take my tweezers. And this stuff is very, very flimsy. So it's basically like a thinner version of foil, but I really, really like it. And then I just take my fingers and I kind of go back and forth from my fingers to my my tweezers, and I just press it down. You see that it like kind of flakes. So what I do is I take my finger and I dip it in the Mod Podge, and then I just smother this with Mod Podge because that's how I stick it down. And you're going to get these little flakes everywhere. And if it's covered with Mod Podge, that's okay. I like to cover it completely with Mod Podge so I know it's going to stick down and it's not going to come up when I epoxy. So what I do is, it's really, really hard to play with this stuff. So I just go from the brush to the tweezers to my fingers. And I make sure that this is completely covered, or at least try my best that it's completely covered with the Mod Podge. And you want to make sure that you're laying it flat. You don't want this to be sticking up, because if you have it sticking up, then whenever you go to epoxy it, it's going to not be flat. It's going to have those bumps on there, and then you might sand it. You might have to sand it down, and if you sand it down, you might just sand away the gold flake. And if it rips or tears, I just let it rip or tear because it just adds to the look. So again, this is another thing that I just let it do its thing. If it happens to tear in the middle, then let it tear because it looks kind of natural and that's how it's supposed to be placed. So I have that, and you can see, you can barely see the gold, but don't worry because you see mine, this is how this was, and you can see the gold clearly. So I don't have to wait for that to dry. I just simply roll my tumbler around and then I add it somewhere else. So I just add that Mod Podge with my brush. And then I'll take my foil, or my gold flake, excuse me, with my tweezers and just kind of smush it on there. You can see that it just smushes just like foil. And that's a lot there, but it's really cool how you can just shrink it down and just kind of manipulate it the way that you want it to be placed on your tumbler. So actually turned out really good on that one. So I like to cover it with Mod Podge. So let's make that dull just to get a nice seal and to make sure that's on the tumbler. Once it's covered with Mod Podge, you can either keep doing this or you can take your finger and flatten it out, whichever way you want to do it. And yes, you can use gloves for this, but I'm not going to waste gloves for me personally because it's so hard to find them right now. So I just use Mod Podge and it comes right off with soap and water. So there you have it. So I'm going to finish up this tumbler and accent this tumbler the way I want it to be accented, and then we'll move on with the next step. Okay, so I think I'm finished adding my gold flakes to my tumbler. And I don't know if you noticed on the fast forward, but as I was adding gold flakes over here, if I already added it over here, I'd go back and just take my Mod Podge and just smother it and keep pushing down those gold flakes. So I really like to just add that Mod Podge on here because two reasons is because I'm pushing it down. I'm pushing down the gold flakes, so I know that I'm not going to have to sand whenever I add my epoxy. Another reason is I know that it's sealed. So I know that these gold flakes are sealed and they are not going anywhere. So once you're finished with applying all of your gold flakes to your tumbler, just go around and just add more Mod Podge to your gold flakes just to ensure that they are stuck to your tumbler. For the next step is you are going to let your Mod Podge dry on your tumbler. So allow this to dry. It should take about 20 to 30 minutes. If it takes longer because you added more Mod Podge, then just let it take longer. Just let it completely dry. And then what you're going to do is you're going to seal your tumbler. You can either seal your tumbler now or you can wait 24 hours and then epoxy it. So do not seal your tumbler with Mod Podge. The reason why that is I did it on this part of the cup to show y'all. If you seal this with Mod Podge, and this is what's going to happen. So I just wanted to show y'all. I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of, I did a streak down. So look what happens. I did a streak down, and so it makes the tumbler, it kind of drags the paint or the inks down. So you don't want that to happen. So you see these little streaks. I just wanted to show y'all that. Just for y'all, and I'm going to clean it up for the sake of the tumbler. So make sure if you are sealing this tumbler, you are using a sealer. I'll grab my sealer and show y'all what sealer that I always use. I have it in my other videos. And then once it's sealed, we'll move on to the next step. To kind of fix that spot, I added more gold to it. I don't know if it looks too decent, but I just wanted to show y'all and then try to fix it real quick. So let me grab my sealer to show y'all what sealer I use. I use an acrylic coating. I use Krylon Crystal Clear Acrylic Coating 1303. I do purchase this off Amazon, and this is my absolute favorite sealer that I use for anything tumbler related or anything I need to seal. Hi everybody, I'm back with my tumbler. The reason why I sound so funny is because I have my face mask on, and everybody knows whenever you have a face mask on, you are going to epoxy. So my tumbler is now completely sealed. It is dried with the acrylic coating. So now it's time to move on to epoxy in the tumbler. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I really went back and forth debating whether to put like some glitter or some glitter additive inside of my epoxy. I really love this Majesty from Glitter Heart Co. It is really, really pretty epoxy additive. And I was going to put it inside of the epoxy and then epoxy with it. But then I decided not to, only because I really love this tumbler, how it has that elegant look to it. It has just enough gold on it. I love whenever it's epoxied. You can see this one that I created. It's just enough pop. So sometimes I like very simple tumblers, and I think this tumbler is just enough. So I have about 20 milliliters of epoxy in my cup. That's 10 milliliters part A and 10 milliliters of part B, totaling 20 milliliters of epoxy. So this is just to place on this tumbler, obviously to seal everything in. And this would be my final step with this tumbler, unless if I wanted to add a decal. So if I wanted to add a decal, then I would probably epoxy this with a little less epoxy, maybe 15 milliliters total of epoxy instead of 20. Let this air dry or air cure, and then add more epoxy after you add that decal. So add the decal after this, and then add more epoxy over. So you could see, I wanted to show y'all that changing, how that gold flake really changes whenever you add that epoxy. It really goes from that dull look to that nice shiny gold look. So you have those gold flakes. And I don't know if you noticed when I added the gold flakes, they're kind of they're like foil, but they break easily and they crumble, and you can smush them together and make them whichever shape you want them to go. It's a little difficult, but once you get the hang of it, it's different. Once you get the hang of it though, it becomes easy. So what I'm going to do is I'll just let this sit on the turner for about 6 hours. After 6 hours, I'll turn off my cup turner. Once I turn off my cup turner, I'll let it to allow it to air dry or air cure for another 16 or so hours. I want to let this dry or cure for at least 24 hours. After 24 hours, that is my time frame of the tumbler being complete. And if you do want to know how to clean the inside of your tumbler or around the rim of your tumbler, please check out my description below. I will have help videos on how I clean the inside of my tumbler or around the rim. I just want to point out that I have all of this epoxy left, so it looks like I actually used about 10 or 12 milliliters of epoxy. So I actually used about 6 milliliters part A and 6 milliliters of part B for this tumbler. And I don't know if y'all can notice, but I know I can notice that when I applied this epoxy to this tumbler, where the gold flakes are, they're not raised at all, they're flat. So there's no sanding. If you do have your gold flakes dry and they aren't flat, after this, let it dry for at least 24 hours or air cure. And then take like a 220 grit sanding block to it and just sand it very lightly. You do not want to sand away the gold flakes. So very, very lightly sand this. And then just throw another coat of epoxy on. Whenever you sand it, you're going to notice it get dull. That's fine that it gets dull. Just go ahead and do that and then epoxy right over that. And since you've made it along this far during this tutorial, I have a special surprise. I am actually giving away this tumbler that you see on your screen to one lucky winner. How you enter the contest is you find me on Facebook at Miss Kiss Creations or Instagram at Miss Kiss Creations, and you message me your favorite color. That's all I need. Once you message me your favorite color, I'll mark it red. Then I'll randomly choose one lucky winner to have this beautiful tumbler sent to them. The winner of this tumbler will be announced in my next published YouTube video. So make sure you turn your notification bell on, so whenever I release my next video, you'll be notified, and I'll let y'all know who won this watercolor tumbler. And I hope this video helped y'all. I really hope you enjoyed this tumbler as much as I do. This is one of my favorite tumblers. And if you did, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to see more Tumbler and craft videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.